we're on, because that wasn't a big deal.
Hi.
Hello.
We're allowed, right?
Oh yeah, this is our house.
How's it going?
Doing well, how you doing?
All right.
We paid for it already.
Yeah, good. It's like sausage, you want to see how it's made.
Yeah, exactly.
The design
Like you made it.
efficient and controlled engagement.
Watch.
When the past project all looked at all three, like, we can just juice on it, and it's a lot more sense, and it's easy to add it, and we share out, it's much more like good instruction.
We should get one of those handouts there.
Is that a Bluetooth speaker?
But every year I
Somebody's gonna be
try
busy,
to.
that's what that means. I have a feeling it is too.
Try to make it better each time.
I've looked at some of those state finalists that are on the agenda, and practically speaking, there's only one of them that makes sense to go to. I think that's the swim in Wall or something.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
So
else is
Aaron, thanks for raising.
too far away, or outdoor.
Well, let's see.
Like I was gonna go
Well,
to
you know, I'm
Pasco
like,
to watch cross country, but you can't even see anyway.
Right.
Each do one. Oh, except one.
Excuse me, President Katims,
Yes, sir.
do you have any extra copies of the handouts
I
today?
don't even know if we have enough for ourselves.
Oh,
but We
okay.
can send you an electronic version.
That'd be awesome.
You can have one.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So did you see? It's too bad the district doesn't record these meetings because I have some videos that got 6,800 views that are study sessions. It could probably bring some good views to the website there. Some good traffic.
I haven't heard anything from.
These are self-graded,
I haven't heard anything from the other.
just with the 6 and 5 of them.
Well, we saw the Tom earlier, so I
Yeah.
don't know if he's there.
We're not getting any feedback from this at all.
Oh,
There's, they're
I don't think it's even remotely.
disidentified.
It doesn't
So
look
those
like
numbers
it's
are all I have
on,
to
the
look
light
at,
is
I see.
on.
This is
But,
extreme.
and it's plugged into my computer, but nothing.
But,
I will text the attention on
that would be approved by so-and-so.
and I'm in the process of sending him a note-taking sheet that I've developed for this, so.
if it's been,
Well, if you
This.
can't get on this, I'll just
then when did we
figure out a way
come
to
to
think of it.
consensus on all the action items? And
So then maybe I'll give you the fifth, you know how I'm assigning each a standard
The majority
director,
of
maybe
it's over here at these meetings, they'll give reports from
Cause I was so excited, I standard vice directors, I can get some, you know,
but they
like perfect.
imagining they also
Exactly.
independently recognize executives. Because they're set, oh yeah, we already talked about this.
boards make decisions just, online. Depends how many sunshine laws we have, how transparency is required.
The only thing, like, they can meet whenever they want, the only thing is they have to
I went over my
have less than 3 people, I think, cause then.
Oh, Karen said
then it
she-
needs to be.
4 minutes ago, she said she's running 10
If it's a quorum.
Quorum, exactly, I couldn't remember.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they can meet,
But yeah, but you can't make decisions that way, you can't make
Yeah,
decisions without.
and they don't make
Time, but I'll
decisions
wait.
here either,
I guess.
this is just
But,
discussion.
and yet somehow they've all arrived at a consensus by the time they get
By
out
the time
there.
they
We
get-
have a
So I'm just wondering where that.
No, me too.
We
I
did
thought
not get
that's what
started.
this would be, so I'd be able to see the sort of
Take your part,
nitty
please
gritty
begin.
behind the scenes
Yeah.
dynamics of.
Well, but I-
Introductory background or?
Yeah, I can, it'd be nice for everybody to hear.
So they're started now.
Although I haven't written, so, anyway. Should I start it?
I think we should go ahead and get started.
I have an extra pen. I usually do. Here you go.
Okay.
Okay, so this, special study session of the Edmonds School District Board of Directors is now called to order. We do have a quorum, Karen is on the way, and we're trying to get Tom on. But, just to give a little bit of background.
Keith, sorry.
What did I
Trying to
say?
get Keith Tom. And I saw Tom looked slightly confused, so.
I would too, if I were you. Gotta catch me, my mouth and my brain don't always work together. The older I get, the worse it gets, as in Connections the other day, there was Olive Branch. I don't know if you're still doing Connections, but anyway, different joke. So, the interesting thing about the WASSDA self-assessment, the board self-assessment, is we tend to think of it as Washington State. But actually, it's something that has been developed as part of research that was done in a number of large research studies across the country. So, in 2009, there was a Washington State School Board Standards Task Force. And they went through sort of a very lengthy and complex process, where they relied heavily on, 3 particular sets of research studies. One is from McRel, which is the Mid-Continent Research for Education and Learning. They're a very well-known education research organization. One is the Lighthouse Inquiry of the Iowa Association of School Boards, and the other is the National School Boards Association. And what they were looking for was, what are the indicators of school board member behaviors that are highly correlated with student achievement, right? And they did a great deal of research with a lot of different districts. And based on the results of those, the Washington State Task Force identified and verified 5 essential principles that were heavily predictive in terms of student achievement, where when they were visible in a school board, those districts had higher achievement, and when they weren't visible, those districts had lower achievement. And so, based on that, they turned those 5 principles into what we currently have as the 5 big standards for the WASSDA standards, which is really pretty interesting.
I appreciate that background.
Yeah, and then they, from there, created this board self-assessment survey by going into the details of those, because they had tons and tons of behaviors, right, that had been researched in terms of what board member, board members do. And they developed this self-assessment survey by categorizing which ones of these went under each one of those 5 principles. Ooh, is that Keith? Keith?
Hold on, join you. There we go.
Ooh, Keith?
Hello?
Hello?
This is great.
Can you hear us?
I can.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm just giving the background now, and basically, just what you've missed is that the standards were developed based on the Washington State standards for WASSDA were developed from a great deal of research that was done from 3 major studies, from which they were looking at what indicators of
Yeah, I got you.
So we're waiting for him to come back. Are you back? Is that the ding ding?
Yep.
Are you back?
I am back.
Okay, so what they were looking for were what behaviors school board members did that were highly correlated with student achievement in their districts, and that the opposite is when those behaviors were not being observed, student achievement was lower. So using all of that information, they pulled out the 5 big principles that seem to be most highly predictive of student achievement, and that's where our 5 big standards of WASSDA come from. And then within that, they developed the self-assessment survey that we have now taken for 4 years. This is our 4th year, right? By using the descriptors of the behaviors that were highly predictive, that categorized under each one of these standards, to develop this survey. So in fact, the more that school board directors demonstrate these behaviors, the more likely there will be student achievement. So we actually, bottom line is we have a very important influence in terms of student achievement, which is what really matters. I think that's probably the most important thing, is to know that what we do can positively affect student achievement if we stay focused on the things that matter and do the kind of thing we're gonna do tonight, which is track our own evaluation of our behaviors and where we're doing well and where we could improve. And at the same time, if we have to be aware that if we're not doing something that's very important, it could negatively impact student achievement. So these things really matter. So the main things are, what matters is what we do in terms of responsible governance, what we do in terms of holding high student expectations, creating conditions for success, holding the district accountable for continuous improvement, and engaging the community. These matter in terms of student achievement, even though they seem a bit removed from the classroom, right? So comments or questions about that?
No, well, then it's just good to have that background.
It is.
information, about the research and where it was coming from.
So the first year that we did this was 22. And then I think, was it before, Rebecca, you were here?
I think it was my interim year.
I think it might have been your interim year. Karen, what you missed is the introduction, and I'll send you my notes from that, so you'll have it. Because it's very interesting. So what we have, which is really great, is longitudinal data on this, is now, obviously, the makeup of the board changes, so that, and we all have a different interpretation sometimes of what these items mean. But that's also sometimes a great jumping off place
For the conversation.
when for the conversation, when there's an, if, we differ in terms of a certain item, what were you thinking about? Well, what were you thinking about? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. diversity in terms of what we do and what matters. So that's just a little bit of our history. You saw the protocol, so, what I'd like to do, so do we have some printed copies?
Sure.
I would love a printed copy instead of the electronic, so I can, like, write notes all over it.
Does anybody else want to read?
Sure, I'll take a look at one.
Thank you. Also, because I have a nice fat folder with all the other ones. So, what I'd like us to first do is as a group. Keith, are you still with us?
Yes.
Excellent. I'd like us to look first on page 3, and that's the overall results where they've compiled in aggregate our responses in terms of, and you see what the key is. Green is, we think we always do it. Blue means we do it most of the time. Yellow means we think we do it some of the time. Red means we never do it. And it's very fine to say, I don't know. And certainly, when we've had newbie board members, there've been a lot more don't knows, which is absolutely to be expected. We all are like deer in headlights the first time. So what I'd like to do is for us to take a minute to look at each one of these and see, what do you think in terms of, just thinking of the 5 big standards, what do you see in terms of the trends in the data across the 4 years that we've done this?
Just kind of popcorn.
Yeah, just, and I'm gonna take notes.
So, I mean, in general, looking at all 5, we've made, either consistent progress, I mean, we made overall progress in all of these standards over the past 4 years. I'm taking it. Starting off at either 26, anywhere from, 15 to 36% in the green for, that's the range.
Tell me those percentages again.
From 15% to 36% is the range across all 5 standards. From there to 63% to 84% across all 5 standards. So that's the range, that's not the average.
Got it. Yeah, what you did is picked out the low groups and then the high groups in terms of always. And I think just visually looking at this, it's clear the progress we've made overall. Other comments in terms of which ones we might seem stronger in than others?
But first, the change that Hawk's talking about is consistent. Like it didn't all happen in 1 year. It's gradually built up in each one of these areas. Only one time did it ever stay the same. It never went down.
I think the point of gradual is very interesting, because that's how real growth happens. You know, when you see something like here, and then it's like here, it's like, really? What really would explain that? Because that's not how growth in line really happens. It's gradual and consistent gives it more weight in terms of being real.
Yeah.
I think, and not aberrant.
You know, I do really like standard 2, right? We're setting and communicating high expectations for student learning. I mean, that, you know, just stands out to me, that something that, you know, I've been really intentional about, and it shows that we're making good progress on that. And, you know, the changes from don't know or some of the time going to, yeah, most of the time and always is really significant.
I think standard two,
Standard two.
we have, is that the one that actually
That's the strongest.
closest to the
That's the
most?
strongest,
Yeah, it
yeah.
is the most, the strongest, and it's very, obviously, I mean, they're all important, but being aware of our goals
Mm-hmm.
and work and having expectations for them is the only way they're gonna happen. Yeah. What else? Keith, you have comments?
Yeah, as I was looking at these, I don't wanna downplay the growth that we have, when I say this, but what I do think too is helpful is over my 4 years is we have more of a shared language around some of this stuff too. It felt more like 5 people on a board my first year and more, now feels like a board of 5. And so when we ask these questions and we look at these standards, I think that we're kind of coalescing around what our goals are a little bit better, which is, I mean, like I said, I don't want to take away from the growth, but I think that's a different type of growth. It's a more organizational growth that I think we're seeing some of as well.
I think that's a really good point. We have to remember that in 2022, we had just come off COVID.
That's
Even
what I was
though-
just thinking that.
Yeah, even though the strategic plan was written starting supposedly in 2021, we know that it was very drafty at that point. We didn't have, the, expectations put in, you know, you know what I'm saying? The specific, measurable goals, the measurement piece. And so, I think, Keith, the point you're making is really important because we were just beginning to have a sense of what our goals were and what did that mean.
And I want to piggyback on what Keith, you were saying, is that, you know, last year was my first year taking this assessment, 2024. And in 2024, you can go down, you can see how much is don't know and how much
Yes.
is some of the time.
That'd be me too.
And so
Yeah, 'cause
for
both of
me,
you were.
that was last year, like I
Yeah.
don't know, and, you know, from my experience so far, it's been some of the time, but I hadn't been here a full year when I took the assessment.
Yeah,
Right, it was early on, I'd been here like briefly. And so, I think what Keith, you're saying with just a common understanding of the language, because this also reflects from 22 to 23 to 24, an annual conversation centered on the language in these standards,
Mhm.
which helps us to become more focused on what it is we're trying to do. But yeah, and now this year is your first year taking this.
Well, I took it last year.
Oh, you did take it last
but
year?
you
That's
were
right.
really.
Oh, yeah, so you and I were both.
I was really good, so I contributed to a lot of you don't know.
Yeah, I got it.
It's not only you,
You don't have to take full responsibility.
yeah, we share that.
Okay.
But don't know
That
if in and
makes
of
sense.
themselves are meaningful.
Yeah.
It means it's something we need to talk about and make sure that we do become clear on that.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, this could lead or go into some of the onboarding. Is
Mhm.
having
That's a really good point.
this available to new board members to familiarize yourself with the language, and with, you know, what these kinds of questions are looking for, and ask clarifying questions about what this might mean, or how would you interpret, how is this interpreted, things like that, just to get a familiar understanding of
Yeah,
how we think about these things.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Anything else before we get into the details? Okay, I think that was excellent analysis. So what I did, in thinking through the protocol is thought, we have 5 standards and we have 5 board members.
How convenient.
How convenient for a jigsaw. So instead of us all looking at all of them at the same time, we're each gonna take one and go somewhat into depth in it. I have created a little note-taking sheet, which you can use or not, and to make it really easy
Do you assign us?
to assign you, I'm gonna assign you by your district. So Karen, you're gonna take standard 1 because you're District 1.
Thank you.
Okay. Keith, you're gonna take standard 2 because you're District 2. Hawk, you're gonna take standard 3 because you're District 3. Tom's gonna take standard 4 and I'm gonna take standard 5. That seemed about as random or as it could.
Efficient.
So if you wanna, you know, you can, if you want me to send you this note-taking sheet electronically, if you wanted to do it electronically, you're welcome to do that. Whatever your style is, and Keith, I sent you this note-taking sheet just before the meeting.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to use it, you could. This is just what they're gonna use. So what I'd like you to do when you're looking at your standard is think, because there's so many items, think benchmarks to some extent to start with, to help sort of be efficient and focused. Think about which benchmarks seem strong across most of these years that we've done this. Which benchmarks haven't necessarily been strong across most of the years, but have been showing good improvement across the years. And which benchmarks or specific items seem inconsistent or potentially of concern or maybe questionable in terms of, do we have a common understanding of the meaning of them? Okay? Any questions about what we're doing? Okay? And I've allowed, so we're running a little short. Let's see how long it takes us. I have put in the protocol 15 minutes. Okay? And I have to admit, some of these are longer than others. So Karen, you have 19 items and 6 benchmarks. Hogg has 19 items and 5 benchmarks. And then Keith has 4 benchmarks and 10 items. And, I have 10 items and 4 benchmarks, and Tom has 11 items and 4. So, 2 of you have a little bit more than the others. Okay?
So I'm gonna start with the timer for 10, just so we can.
That's a good idea. That's a great idea, Rebecca.
Okay. Okay, let's start it.
Okay. And then the goal is that we will report out to the bigger group, right?
2 minutes.
It's actually quite interesting.
That's 10.
Is it, and do we need more time?
Showing your fingers, how many more minutes do you think you need?
I think it'll be
2? Alright, 2. Keep 2 okay?
He's busy.
I can find my button, yes, I'm good.
Okay, 2 more.
These are interesting. Is that the 2-minute warning?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody ready to start clearing out?
Over here.
Karen, you okay? Because I know you have a lot, and Hawk, you have a lot.
Sure, I mean, I'd be open to discussion.
Oh, well, yes, absolutely. We're there. So I'm gonna give everybody about 3 to 4 minutes, to share out. So Karen, you wanna start?
Sure,
Should we
so,
set a 3-minute timer just to keep us on, or
Sure.
do you wanna just, okay.
okay, so I'll talk fast. So I decided to break this up by, like, trying to figure out which of the benchmarks is a general overview. So I have standard 1, which is provide responsible school districts governance by. And, so our strong benchmarks across the year, if we look at page, let me see, do it this way, page 6. This benchmark is ensuring the board is accountable and open to the public, including seeking divergent perspectives. And we've seen pretty consistent on number 8 and number 9 throughout the years, which is carry out annual assessments and setting goals. On C, which is respecting and advocating mutual understanding of the roles, we're pretty consistent on delegating authority to the superintendent to manage district operations and implement policy. Those are all in the green there in this
Yeah,
particular one.
yeah.
So I think we've done really well there. If we move over to E, let's see, which is go to page 12, treating individuals, including fellow board members, staff, students, community members with respect, consistent across the board, across the years. And I'm noting on page 11-17, I've got a little flag when I'm thinking about this particular one. I also flagged this because in 23 and 25, we had an always, all board members, and it changed in between those 2 years. So I flagged that one for, do we agree on the meaning? Or is there inconsistency on that one? It's not way out there, but that flagged a kind of a understanding of the question and what are we measuring in our heads to me. On the benchmark of success working as an effective and collaborative team, page 13, working with the, okay, I already said that one, working with the superintendent. That was, we're doing really great on that. The good improvement, also very good improvement, going back to the delegating authority, we've got, again, of course, that one, delegating authority, showing consistency, and the good improvement is because we went to all green, so I flagged that. On if you look at page 14, and it is working as an effective and collaborative team. Number 21 is showing using a collaborative process that results in well-informed problem solving. We've definitely shown some good improvement on that, with the majority of the board feeling that in the past that we are showing improvement in that. Is that it? Okay, let me go with that. Let me jump to
We'll give Karen a little more time.
F on F20. This one is working as effective collaboratively, pursue professional development, improve board members' knowledge and skills by attending conferences, holding study sessions, etc. That one I'm flagging on, do we agree with the meeting? Because we sure have a lot of study sessions. And so I'm kind of wondering, we're saying most of the time, always, and some of the time. So I'm kind of wondering on, with this kind of packed in there, I think that we're disaggregating this differently. Because, I mean, we got lots of study sessions. So that was a little flag for me. On where we're showing good improvement, going back there, page 11, E16, promoting healthy relationships, communicating supportively, and providing opportunities for stakeholders and staff. I thought we were showing some good improvement on that. And again, this is also one I was questioning, do we agree on the opportunity? Because one of it says some of the time, but I think there's some consistency. And then there was one that I really wanted to. B6, provide information to the public that supports board discussions and decisions. That was showing really good improvement. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but, and that is on page 5. So we're also very consistent on that one. The other one that I was flagging for understanding possible, using written protocols for interaction. We went,
Which number is that?
oh, I'm sorry, that's page 8, number 12. And this is respecting and advocating mutual understanding for the roles and responsibilities of board member and superintendent, using written protocols for its interaction. That was one that flagged for me, because I think everything we do is a written protocol, just about. So that was just one that, not a concern or anything, but do we agree on the meeting, on what the meeting is, right? Is for me, I think. I could go on for another 10 minutes, but that I think is the broad picture of what I'm seeing. And what I've done for my notes is in each category, I just did the benchmark and the question number, so we can align it, so when I've got a second, to make it more,
That's great.
a little comprehensive to see, rather than me just do it quick 3
And if
minutes.
you, I'm gonna ask everyone at the end to just send me your notes.
Absolutely.
So that I can then sort of aggregate them.
But overall, this was showing good improvement. I felt that this provided responsible school district's governance by doing these steps. We seem to be consistently getting a better understanding together and doing a better job, doing a good job, so.
Thank you, Karen.
And that lines up with 70% of the always in the aggregate.
Yeah, thanks. Nice analysis. Keith, you wanna tell us what you see in standard 2?
Yeah, I feel like I got a little bit of the easy one here, because this goes back to, I think a little bit more of our shared understandings here at standard 2.
Yeah.
Because, and I think that is actually best exemplified in question 25 here. In 2022, we were all into the blue on the foster culture of collaboration around shared purpose for improving student achievement. And I think we all were doing that, but kind of in our own way. And now we sort of have a shared view of what that looks like. So it's more the shared purpose, shared vision instead of a shared purpose, I think is what we have more of now. So as we go through the first part, it's been benchmark A there. The conviction all students can learn, and student learning can improve regardless of existing circumstances. We really made that our focus recently. And so it makes sense to me to see that we're having growth there and we have a shared understanding. So I think that it makes total sense to me that it's 5041 on those. Now what I did think was interesting were questions 26 and 27 that we actually didn't have full agreement on those. Like in my opinion, I think that we actually do a really good job of communicating out to our community. We really try that. That is something that, I don't know, maybe is something that I noticed more because we've really made a concerted effort over the last 4 years, I think, to really do that. You know, we don't have any 6-hour board meetings anymore about budgets because we do a good job of the upfront communications. And then the including stakeholders, and I hope I'm not throwing myself under the bus since I was the one most of the time person here. I don't know what my answer was to it, but I really think that should be 5 always because we do a very good job of, I think, getting our teachers in the room, getting, soliciting feedback. Even sometimes I'm like, I don't know that we need this much feedback on this stuff. So I think we do a really good job of that. So benchmark 2, I was a little surprised that we didn't have a little bit closer to unanimity there. Going down, what extent does our board have a plan focused on student achievement? And we've shown a lot of growth since 2022, and that I think goes back to what Nancy was saying at the start of this, that we had a strategic plan on paper, but we hadn't implemented a strategic plan. So a lot of our growth there, I think, is very attributable to us seeing what the plan looks like, committing to the plan, and having a shared understanding of the plan. So it's great to see that we've shown consistent growth there, and I think we're all pretty much on the same page with that. And obviously, 30 continuing to monitor the growth with our regular study sessions. I'm excited to see what the district's going to do this year that makes it a little less like quarterly updates and a little more holistic. Big growth, I thought, on 30, which was in the last standard, and 32, which is in benchmark D. Those are the two areas in this that we have shown the most growth as a board. And that goes back to, again, well, I can't really say what that goes back to. I'm not sure why we feel that we have done so much better in the category of reviewing the stuff with the superintendent versus previous years, and basically monitoring progress. I don't know why we feel like we're doing better, because I do feel like we were pretty good at it for a while, but I'm glad to see that, because that, again, our major focus is going to be student achievement, student grades, all of that. Then having this expectation of regular reviews, and that we all agree we're getting those regular reviews, is a really big thing for us as a board. So I like that. Oh, those are my remarks. So anyway, basically the big takeaway I took from this though is that our communication, I think, has gotten a lot better for the last 4 years with ourselves and with the community, and I think that we see that we can see that we are making that concerted effort. And from where our position is as board members, elected representatives, I think it's really important that we are able to do that to the community, give that to the community. So I think that's really great that we're showing a lot of growth here.
Great. Thank you, Keith.
Okay, standard 3?
Yes.
All right, so standard 3 is creating conditions district-wide for student and staff success. Of all the standards, this is where we are weakest. If you look at the overview on whatever the first page of data, the aggregate, if you look at 2023, we actually were stronger in 2023 than we are even this year. Because when you combine the 51% and the 36%, that's 87% either always or most of the time, down to 63% and 14%, which is always and most of the time. So we've gone down from 87% rather to 77%.
But is that due to the more of the don't knows?
No, that's because there's only 5% that don't know, but 13% say some of the time, 5% say never. So let's break down, let's dig into what that looks like.
Okay.
So you turn page, I want to go through this sequentially. So turn to page 21. Benchmark A is providing for the safety and security of all students and staff. On both questions 33 and 34, we've made progress, but on question 34, have policies that require regular evaluation and management of safety and security risks. So do we have policies that require regular evaluation and management of safety and security risks? There's one saying never. So that's a flag for me, because we have, one saying all the time, 3 saying most of the time, and 1 saying never. So that's something that we need to clarify with everybody.
That may be either a misunderstanding
Yes.
of our not. Yeah.
Okay. The benchmark, turning the page to, 22 of 41, benchmark of success B is creating conditions district-wide for all students and staff by employing and supporting quality teachers, administrators, and other staff, and providing for their professional development. Growth on, having policies to hire and retain qualified staff, having policies for evaluating staff based on student success. This is where we have never, 2 people saying never, and 1 person saying I don't know. So this one needs clarification.
So this is the one that in the past has always been a difficult one, because we do not evaluate teachers per se on test scores.
Yeah.
And so if we use that as a hard and fast sort of rule on staff, and we're thinking of that, but we do evaluate teachers on the Danielson framework. We certainly evaluate other staff. Everybody has to have goals there. So I think this is one where it depends on, we need clarification in what we mean and we should probably talk about
Yes.
at some point.
What do we mean by student success?
What do we mean by student success and evaluating staff based on that?
Correct.
But it's always, from the first year, it was a bugaboo.
Yeah, so I'd like to, at some point, dedicate a little bit of time to make sure that we see the picture and understand like how that Danielson framework works and where in the framework it requires evaluation of student growth, because there is two specific criteria that require student growth data.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I do think we have a study session coming up about Danielson.
Perfect.
And so that'll be a good time to go over what that student growth metric looks like, et cetera.
That would be great. Also, if we could maybe work into that, a discussion of, because I don't think we even know how principals are evaluated necessarily, and other staff. And to think about just to what extent are the evaluations done across the various categories of staff related to student success?
Might be a lot for 1 hour, we might just wanna focus on Danielson first and
Yeah,
then
and
think
then do
about
that
another time to
one
do that,
another
yeah.
Yeah, but it is clearly something, I mean, I worked in the district, and while I understand Danielson and what happens with teachers, and I know certainly knew how I was as a director, but in general, I knew there was some principal evaluation thing, but I didn't pay attention, if I didn't have, that kind of thing. It would be helpful for us to know.
Alright, I'll get on with the rest of the standards.
Yeah.
So standard 3, continuing with B, looking at question 37, we've made progress there, have policies that support research-based best practices for staff development. And there's, while we've made progress, there's still, someone doesn't know and someone else thinks some of the time. Okay. Next, there was some loss in the progress with to what extent our board has an established course of study for students and graduation requirements that align with high expectation for student achievement. And I think we might need to define alignment with high expectations for student achievement. What do we mean specifically by that?
Well, and what's
Because there's
course
a
of
lot.
study mean? And this, I was like, what does that mean?
Yes, so defining our terms here
Yeah.
would be helpful for us. And then question 39 also is a weak area, having policies that ensure students receive the curriculum support and supplemental materials necessary for high achievement. I think we are somewhat hamstrung by financial concerns. We can't buy the best curriculum at the time. So a lot of these in standard 3 are kind of hamstrung by our capacity to.
But this one's saying we have policies that ensure, right?
Yes, yep, that is true, but we do have policies that say how often, but we don't have policies that say, we've also delayed adoptions because. So, but we should.
No, I agree, it's.
Yeah, but maybe we should review what those policies are, just so we make sure that people understand what it is that we say. Adopting a budget that supports quality staff development and resource for curriculum implementation, that's gone up, but there's also one person that says, some of the time, that's probably me, because I know we can't afford to do as much as we used to be able to do. Question 41, having a process that includes community and parent involvement in selecting curriculum. We are very solid on that, have been for the last 2 years. We have a very clear process, and parents have a lot of exposure to it. Do we have, question 42, we've gotten worse on that. Do we have policies that require rigorous and regular evaluation of curriculum and supplemental materials to ensure they align with state and district standards? I don't know if we have a policy that says we require a regular evaluation of curriculum and supplemental materials, but that's just because I don't know. That's also something that's dependent on budget. Right? Okay. Question 43, have a process in place to support evaluation and updating technology. There's one that says never, and I think that, and 4 that say all the time. So that's a reflection of a different different interpretation of the question. organization, operations, and resources for an efficient and effective learning environment. We have improved from last year on communicating expectation that all classrooms will implement effective instructional practices from two people saying from two people saying most of the time, two people saying some of the time, and one person saying I don't know, to two people saying always and three people saying some of the time. So there is improvement, but I mean, the trend is up, but that's still not perfect. There is we've gone backward in our understanding of providing for evaluation of district operations to ensure there's efficient and effective learning environment. So last year, there were 3 people that said either most of the time or some of the time, and this year we have 3 people that don't know. So that just, however we interpreted that question, 3 of us didn't know if we do provide evaluations of district operations to ensure efficient and effective learning.
And I think, sorry, I think that's one that, as we're talking about, like, that would be great for me to get feedback from all of you, say, what would you need to know to be able to say yes or no on that? Like,
Right.
and people just don't know.
Yeah.
So when I see don't know, I feel like that's where there's a lack of information being shared with you, so that you can make a judgment on, yeah, we're doing that, or no, we're not doing that.
So then for benchmark of success E, we crushed this one. This is all about adopting and monitoring an annual budget that allocates resources based on district vision, goals, and priorities for student learning. We've been topped the last 2 years, for 24 and 25, are all in, all 5 agree that it's always except for the one, question 50, which is adopt a fiscally responsible annual budget that is aligned with the district's vision and plan. 4 said, this year 4 said, always, and 1 said most of the time. That's still an improvement from last year where only 2 said, always, 2 said, most of the time, and 1 said I don't know. So there's an improvement in understanding, as well as overall improvement in everything, in terms of adopting and monitoring an annual budget that allocates resources based on.
But overall, when you just look at that benchmark, it's very green.
Crushed it. Crushed it. Okay. Standard 4. That's me. That's you.
So I'm just gonna pause for a minute, we're right at 6, so I'm just keeping you apprised of.
Are we okay going to like 6:15?
Not okay.
Okay.
You guys okay?
Well, this one might be quick. I have only 3 benchmarks under the standard. None of them have been strong across most years, but all of them have shown good improvement. So that includes committing to continuous improvement in student achievement at each school and throughout the district, evaluating the superintendent on clear and focused expectations, and measuring student academic progress and needs based on valid and reliable assessments. So the items where there was maybe a possible weakness or misunderstanding or something. 55, publicly recognized efforts of schools in improving student learning. So we have some of the time, most of the time, and 3 all the times. So that seems like it could possibly need a little clarification. 57, communicate performance expectations for the superintendent to our community. There are a couple of always, most of the time, never, and don't know. So that's something where we need either to get on the same page about how we're evaluating that, I guess.
We do share,
Don't we share?
we share Rebecca's goals.
Yeah, that's
We
what
align them to the strategic plan.
we posted,
Do
don't we?
we post the goals, the expectations?
Yeah, there's a chart with
Yeah.
our goals, the strategic goals, our goals, her goals, and
And
the.
somewhat uncommonly, but there's no reason for you to know it's uncommon, we do actually bring my goals forward to a board meeting for approval.
Yeah,
That's not,
right.
standard practice in places, we put it in consent agenda so that people see it here. But there's no reason for you to know that that's a little bit of an unusual action.
Okay, well, it's good clarification for me there. Because I know it was, say that we can get it all the time if it's always posted, and it's even brought before the public.
We do, but maybe it means that we don't point it out strongly enough in the board meeting, I don't know. I mean, we do, but people may not pay attention, I don't know. But we'll think about that.
There's lots of traffic.
Yeah.
On 58, we have 4 always and 1 some of the time. So that might be clarifications too. That's basing decisions about superintendent's contract on objective evaluation of her performance and achievement of agreed upon goals. And, 62, well, 61 is another one like that, where it's 4 always, 1 some of the time. Regularly review data, including disaggregated student achievement data to measure progress toward district goals. So that's, somebody has a different read of that question.
That might be me, I don't remember really, but it could be me because I always think, and I say, I want it more disaggregated. And we get it, like by grade level and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
you were always last year.
what can I say? Maybe we got it more disaggregated, I don't know. Also, your brain at that moment in time when you're filling this out,
Yeah,
it's like any assessment, right?
Yep.
There's, the
variation.
validity is variable, you know, I mean, it's like, we take everything, we look for trends and patterns.
and we only have 5.
People,
Yeah.
yeah, our sample size is
Sample
so
size is
small.
5.
Yeah.
And 62 is one where there's a bigger difference. Regularly evaluate and adjust resources and strategies for closing achievement gaps to maximize their effectiveness. We got 2 always, 2 sums, and 1 most, so.
That's improved from before.
It's definitely improvement, everything's improving. It's just that there's, if we're more than 1 apart on those, it seems like there maybe is not the same understanding of either the question, what we're thinking about, or remembering what the,
It's also hard to think about adjusting resources when we don't have any resources,
yes,
and which may have influence.
that's true as well.
Hard to adjust something you have nothing on.
That's standard 4.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll try to go through standard 5 pretty quickly. So on benchmark A, there, 4 items on that benchmark. They all show good progress, from the first year to this year across them. So I think I would just say good progress across all the years. I obviously particularly like number 63. We all agree and look at the difference between year 1 and year 4 in terms of our advocacy. We have definitely upped our advocacy and we all recognize that. For benchmark B, there was some inconsistency, I thought, in item 67, which is ensuring the public is well informed of the board's roles and responsibilities. We're definitely better this year, but we don't spend a lot of time doing that. You know, we do it in our board norms and protocols, and it's most important for us, but maybe we need to, you know, make it more visible to the public what our roles and responsibilities are.
Well, that is a big improvement from the year before.
Yeah.
Any of these.
It's a big, I mean, it's like a huge jump that
First
this
time we
year
got
we
green
did,
down there.
we obviously have, we all see that that's a big jump, but it's still a little inconsistent from before. Item number 68 is very strong, which is that we conduct our business in a transparent and accountable manner, and that's really important. For benchmark C, again, we've seen a big jump from the previous years to this year, in both of those items. So, we're clearly doing something more this year than we've done in the past in terms, and I think we have been very explicit and proactive towards our interest in making sure the community is as well informed as possible on things, and I think that's what shows here. And for, the benchmark D, again, major improvement across the years. You know, this is more gradual, major improvement in terms of, again, getting input from community and staff on what we're doing. So, in the last couple minutes, I don't wanna lose, even though we've discussed it a little bit, but if there are any last thoughts about what does this mean for us? So, are there things we've been doing that we haven't already mentioned that we think could be, because clearly we have really good results this year compared to previous years. We still see there is a concern and some inconsistencies. But what do you think are some of the things we've been doing to make a difference?
We have a new superintendent from 23, right? Now, when did we get there? When did we
Started in
switch?
22,
Started
and then I
22?
was hired as ongoing for the start of
2023, okay, so, what's interesting to me, just as an overall trend that we started doing, we're looking at one superintendent from the beginning, of a transition to now, and so I think, for me, it's my fourth superintendent, and I see consistency in the board, right, and so consistency of leadership and the partnership with the superintendent does make a difference also, right? In those times when I've seen transition, not only leadership of the board, but in changing the superintendent, some of the understandings take a little bit longer. What I'm seeing here is consistent, and saying we made a good decision, one that we made a good decision, but also just keeping that in mind on our collective understanding of things. And to me, it looks like there's only a few spots where when I think we all kind of agree there were some squishy questions, like, student success, teacher evaluation, what? And then the other ones, but it seems like we have a pretty high functioning awareness of just being aware that we need to be doing this and be consistent in the goals seems to be bringing improvement. And I really like this.
I also would say that in 2022, when folks took the self-assessment, it's at the beginning of the year. So even though you did come in 22, it was based on the first, 3 months of you and that.
So transition time.
Right,
So
there's a,
That's interesting.
yeah, there's a big jump there's a huge jump between that year and the following year with everything.
yeah, transitions are tough.
I have a wondering about, when we talk about Danielson, we talk about you visit distinguished in some areas for a period of time, but there's no expectation that you're distinguished in every single area, every single year. There's nothing like that here. Like if we devote all of our energy one year to X, Y, Z, we would normally expect we have a limited amount of time. We have limited resources in terms of time being our most valuable resource. Maybe we're not gonna talk as much about data because we're talking all about adoptions or whatever. There's no sort of recognition in this in the same way there is like with the teacher evaluation, that if you're working really hard on one thing in 1 year, it is very natural that something else might not happen as much that year or feel like it happens so much. The only other piece of insight I would have is on a couple of these, I definitely think they're impacted by budget. So for example, to the point of we do a lot of study sessions, not really going to conferences very much because we're saying does it make sense for us to spend $700 to go to whatever it is to go to a legislative conference? No, it really doesn't. And so depending on what part of that question you're paying attention to, do we go to conferences, it's hard to answer always when we very rarely go to conferences. And when it's in Spokane, it's kind of never, so.
But one of the things is, yes, we're impacted by budget, but I think we've also been, for some of these, impacted in a positive way, because our advocacy, and when we talk about where are we putting our attention, we're putting it on where are our biggest funding needs, how do we make a difference, how do we help get community support? So all of those pieces that are communicating, being more transparent, the advocacy piece, because we have that need, that's our biggest need. We can't meet kids' needs if we don't have the finances from the state to do that.
Oh, I agree 100%, and I think it would be disingenuous to say that some of these things, like curriculum adoptions, like some of the things where we're talking about keeping cuts as far away from the classroom as possible, aren't impacting this, because this doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
I do have to point out, Erin, her
Yeah, we
computer
got it, yeah.
gives the pivot between Keith going from this room to
I
the
know,
next room.
okay,
So,
We done.
a couple minutes, she needs to have at least 15
Okay.
minutes to make sure we can get him on.
okay. What I'm gonna, is there any last thought on things we've been doing? But what I'd also like you to do is, after this, when you have time, like back at home, to think about this and send me last thoughts that you have about this discussion, this process, what we've been doing in terms of this, so that I'll try to aggregate this into some sort of document which we haven't really done very well in the past, to summarize our conversation. So if you could do that, Karen, I see
Yeah.
you already sent me your notes, thank you so much.
I did?
But this last piece, if you could, yeah, go ahead.
Just my last thing that I wanna put on record or whatever is that, I don't think our purpose should necessarily the purpose of this now is not necessarily be all in green all the time. I think it's, the purpose is to reflect on the answers, to make sure we're clear in our understanding and focus on where our focus needs to be.
Yeah.
Because our focus can't be everywhere all at once.
Right.
Right.
And so I appreciate what you said.
Well, and it's like any assessment, you use it to help diagnose what's going well and where you might want to put more emphasis, or where we just simply don't have either the will or the need to put more emphasis in this particular time. But you're right, you know, we're not in a place to go.